with that, we're going to go into the Minnesota bills. But the interesting thing about what you just said too, is go take a look at some of the people's occupation for that are legislators and representatives. Some of them have absolutely no reason to be in where they're at, and they're making very, very hard decisions for us. And I'll go back to the city council of Duluth too. Look at some of their background, some of their experience. They have no business making these decisions for the rest of our city, except for the fact that they were elected in. And that needs to change. People need to wake up. People need to start electing people, and good people need to start stepping up to try to fill those places too. It's very hard to give up your time and want to volunteer when you've got a successful business or you're doing something that maybe you're retired now, but people need to step up. We need better leaders in leadership positions in our city, in our state, and our federal government. It can't just be the case that people just default back and just fall into a position on the city council and then decide how we're going to spend our tax money and where we're going to get, how we're not spending our tax money or how we're not doing taxation. That's even worse. They have no benefit. I mean, if they have no economic development area in their brain and they've never thought about it and everything's just like they're like trust fund babies. They just know how to spend money. They don't know how to make money.
Until we have a city council that starts saying, no, we're not going to spend that money. Duluth's in deep trouble.
Right. All right. I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh God, I misnumbered a bunch of these.
You have a lot.
I have like 8,
4 hours worth.
9, 10, 11, 12 things to go. 13 things to go. Okay. So we're going to kind of rapid fire through these a little more than what we've been doing for talking about them. I didn't realize I actually had this many. So we'll talk about these. We'll fire off the numbers and then we'll talk about each one a little bit. HF 2865. This bill appropriates $22.9 million for fiscal year 2026 and $12.9 million for fiscal year 27 to the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. The funds support the Economic Development and Housing Challenge Program and low to moderate income housing programs. So first of all, that's right now we're talking about $35 million in the next 2 years. But there's a kicker, and I'll let you give one guess on who is sponsoring this bill. A portion of these funds, $1.2 million in 2026 and annually thereafter, is dedicated to housing projects for American Indians.
That would be our Duluth News Tribune endorsed representative, Alicia Kozlowski.
That is correct. Because you know why? Because Alicia is part Native American, and that's what her bills are all geared toward. She does not do bills that are geared for everybody. She does it based on her groups, LGBTQ, Hispanic, and Native American. Otherwise, she'll jump onto some other bills that are easy peasy bills, and, something that's a no-brainer. But when it comes down to the real, this is a bill that I've sponsored, that I've created, that's going to help the community, it's never about just everybody in general.
Right.
And if I was a Minnesota legislator and I started coming up with bills that were for Caucasians or for Finlanders or for Polish people, I would expect outrage. I would expect people to call me on it. And I would like to see some people starting to call her on this stuff too. The Native Americans here have their own reservation. They have their own sources of revenue, and they don't need this special carving out for just them too. It's just so much.
Right.
So, you want equality? Get it. Gen Z, how are we taught about equality? Everybody gets an equal shot, and then you do with it what you will. Their whole view of equality now is give me.
Right. Yeah, you need to. Every bill statewide has to be for everyone statewide, not just certain groups.
Right. All right. We're going to go to the next one. This was just pointed out to me by a guy named Mark, who I see every day because he parks my car. And he said, no, he does. He works in the garage.
Does he watch the show?
I don't think he watches the show yet, but I'm working on him.
There you go.
Yeah. HF 2736. mandatory fine for school bus stop signal alarm violations eliminated. So it used to be the case that it was a $500 fine mandatory if you drove past a bus with the signal alarm out. And we have a representative, Cedrick Frazier from District 43A, that thinks that's not fair. You should be a case-by-case basis. Shouldn't just be a mandatory amount. What do you think is causing this to be something that he says, it's time to remove this horrible, horrible thing that protects kids?
I can't think of that one.
I'm baffled by this. And in fact, when Mark told me about this as being a problem, I was like, that doesn't sound right. And I went and looked at some of the Senate bills. And the only one I could find that had to do with school bus arms, because the wording was kind of weird, was they wanted to increase the fine from $500 to $750 or something like that. That I understood. And I thought, well, maybe he just misheard about what the bill said. But then I did find out, I think Jeff Doseth posted something on Facebook to point it out. And then I went and dug around and found it. There's only one representative on this bill. It's Cedrick. And I don't think this is going to get any traction, but it leads to a bigger thing. What I've noticed when I'm looking through these bills, because I'm really paying attention for the first time in my life, I'm looking at these Minnesota bills as they're coming out. This is just a bunch of people that are trying to figure out how to justify what they're doing down in the cities and how to spend money.
Right.
The amount of bills is 20 times higher than it needs to be. And it's amazing what they're going after. And I really seriously don't believe that a lot of these legislators even understand the bills that they put forth. Now, this guy, Cedrick, I believe he does understand it because it's such a simple one. It's such a simple bill. But why would you do it? If somebody could explain this to me in a logical way, and I've read his explanation and I don't buy it. If somebody could explain this in the comments or send me an email or contact me through the site, I would love to see it because I like to be educated on this stuff. Maybe there's a logical reason. Cedrick is a lawyer, so I'm assuming he understands. He's not just a bartender. That's nothing against bartenders, but he's actually a lawyer, so he knows the law. I'm guessing he has a good reason for it. He hasn't stated it yet. The reason he stated was ridiculous to me. It was very lawyerish. But to get rid of the $500 fine, why? You should be fined every time you do it. It should be worse the second time. And the third time, maybe you should lose your license because you're putting kids at risk.
If we can save one kid with this act,
yes,
we can save one life. That would be worth it.
That's our motto for everything. Lower the gas tax because if it just saved one life.
Yes.
All right. HF 1289. This is by Zach Stevenson from the DFL. And this is a social media platforms required to post a mental health warning label and timer notifications. So you can't go to a site anymore without it telling you, you might experience some mental discomfort and then have a timer pop up after a certain amount of times. Are you sure you don't want to take a break and go outside? And there's a word that we learned in college or high school or I don't know when called paternalistic. It's when your government is trying to be your mommy and daddy. And it's not the role of the government to be that. So get off our backs.
I mean, this is right off of the Chinese handbook.
Yes.
Because China doesn't allow their people, the kids under 16 or whatever the age is over there, to watch any social media unless it's about how great the Communist Party is.
Right. Yes.
So this is basically going down this is the first step to the path of you better believe what the government says, and we're going to control what you view because there might be some misinformation out there.
Right. So I'm going to go through the Grok summary of this because there's only 3 things that it really has to summarize. Mental health warning labels. The social media platforms must display a conspicuous warning label each time a user accesses the platform. The label must warn of potential negative mental health impacts, provide resources like the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, and only disappear if the user exits or acknowledges the risks and proceed. The label cannot be hidden in terms and conditions, cluttered with extraneous information, or disabled, except as noted. The Commissioner of Health with the Commissioner of Commerce would develop evidence-based guidelines for the label's contents, exempt from standard rulemaking process. Number 2, pop-up timer notifications. Platform must show a pop-up every 30 minutes of active use, informing users of time spent consecutively and total daily usage. So tracking as much as possible. Users must acknowledge the notification for it to disappear. Platforms may allow users to deactivate the timer or adjust its frequency up to a maximum of 60 minutes. Enforcement. This bill amends Section 323M.32 to grant the Attorney General, authority to investigate and act against violations of these requirements. No private cause of action is created for individuals harmed by noncompliance. So, nanny state, unfunded mandates, causing companies to do the development for this kind of thing, make sure it's all in compliance. It's busy work, it's overreach, and the government should keep their frickin' faces out of these kind of things and let people solve this stuff for themselves. It's not your job.
And how would you, and it says of action is created for individuals harmed by non-compliance. So how do you, that's kind of vague language. What do you mean harmed by non-compliance? So basically everything you're getting harmed by?
Yes.
You know, if you see something you don't like, so therefore you can sue the web page?
It's vague enough to put that, yeah. And with our current Attorney General, he would do it. You know, Ellison? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's suing Trump 20 times already in less than 60 days. And,
yeah,
you know, he didn't sue the Biden administration once.
Oh,
so.
Speaking of Alice, he's coming to Duluth April 5th for a talk, and you have to RSVP to even find out where or when it is. And I RSVP, but I haven't gotten any notifications back to find out if I'm going to be allowed to go to it. Wouldn't that be funny?
You're going to have, the FBI is going to have to investigate you first, or the Minnesota Department of Investigations will have
Oh,
to.
yeah. I think I just put myself on a honeypot list. I'm screwed.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, this podcast goes away and somebody else comes up. Hello. My name is Sean.
Sean Jeter.
Well, I don't remember what his last name is. Let's see. HF 2325, overtime pay required on holidays. This requires employers to pay employees at least 1.5 times their regular rate for work performed on holidays. And those are defined as New Year's Day, Memorial Day, Thanksgiving. This ensures premium pay for holiday work, increasing labor costs for employers and boosting earnings for employees on those days, as it doesn't mandate holiday work itself. Again, government, make your own rules for your own employees and stay out of the private sector with this kind of crap. It's up to the employers to decide how much they're going to pay their employees, not you.
This seems like he's lining his own pocket, because maybe as a firefighter, maybe this is just normal wage and he doesn't like it. Therefore, he's going to line his own pocket.
I think they already get this. I think firefighters already get time and a half for holidays. It's just mandating it for everybody. This is a union mindset. This is a union guy's mindset is we will force the employers to pay this. We don't care what the cost is. It doesn't matter to us that the business have to pay for it. We're going to look like heroes. Right?
Right. It's buying votes is what it boils down to.
Here's one that the next one, HF 2195. This is Kozlowski and Pete Johnson are co-authors. Equal rights under the law provided and discrimination based on the listed characteristics prohibited and constitutional amendment proposed. And the ballot would say, shall the Minnesota Constitution be amended to state that marriage is a fundamental right and shall not be restricted based on race or gender or race. And my question is, why? Is it restricted? Is there talk about it being restricted on gender or race? Is this to make sure same-sex marriage is codified, or is this something else? And when has race ever been, I mean, maybe back in the 50s and 60s, but you're going to try to outlaw race?
It looks like they want to add it to the Constitution, so it
They
can
do.
never be. But yeah, who's going to change it?
Who's pushing this? Yeah,
Right.
what's the impetus for this one? I do not understand. This is more of the busy work that I see that's happening. Got to push out some bills, man. And both Pete and Alicia are in agreement with this. So why are they doing it? What are those guys doing for Duluth? I mean, they're supposed to be representing the state in general, but Duluth specifically, there are very few bills that have anything to do with Duluth that are other than like entertainment things.
Right. Yeah, and coming from a party that can't define gender, how would you ever put that in? How would you ever make that a law when you can't define what it is?
Everything is legal. Everything is illegal. We're just in a Schrodinger's law now.
Right.
HF 2099, local government emergency management provided, report required. This is a Pete Johnson special. He's the chief and only author. And the Minnesota bill allocates $12 million annually in fiscal years 26 and 27 from the general fund to the Commissioner of Public Safety for local emergency management. The fund will be equally distributed to 87 counties, 11 federally recognized tribes, and 4 first-class cities for planning, preparedness, training, equipment, and infrastructure improvements. This funding supplements, not replaces, federal emergency funds. So we're already getting federal emergency funds to do this. But
Right.
apparently we need to pull $12 million extra money out to do this planning. And it's a report. I don't get it. I don't understand why. What kind of threats? What threats are they addressing? Weather, terrorist attack, earthquake, $24 million over 2 years in addition to the federal funding. Why? Again, let's just be clear. $8 billion in deficit. Is it $6 or $8 billion?
$6 billion.
$6 billion deficit projected for this next budget. So I don't get it. I think this is another. There's something behind this, and I don't think it's has to do with any kind of preparedness. I think this has to do with somebody that contributed or needs to have this done is getting their due.
Yeah, they're getting themselves put on the state payroll versus because they think they're going to lose their job federally.
It could be. That very well could be. HF 2059, local government required to establish residential instant solar permitting platforms and report required. Requires local governments with over 5,000 residents to adopt an automated residential instant solar permitting platform for residential solar photovoltaic systems. The platforms must instantly issue permits for code compliance applications, process at least 75% of applications on existing homes, and eliminate manual reviews during permitting and inspection. Authorities must submit a compliance report within 60 days of adoption and annual reports from 27 to 36, detailing usage and plans of increased adoption if needed. Inspections are required, with remote options offered, and only one inspection allowed unless failed. Non-compliance authorities may lose state funding eligibility. Permit-free jurisdictions are exempt. So cities are being stripped from zoning laws again, from zoning rights. And this is an unfunded mandate. This is requiring them to come up with their additional support and additional processes. They don't give any money for this. And this is to fast track stuff that may cause problems in the future. So if there's a scam artist out here with solar panels coming through, they're going to get a lot of installations before they're figured out and they flee the state.
Right. And then they want to fast track it. So, you know, if the mines want to do something, then it's 10 years and proof of working. And if you want to build a house in an undeveloped area, then you need a 3-year EPA permit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it takes 3 years to get the, you know, it took them almost 5 years to get the permits to build an old Central's lot. But now they want for solar panels, then you can just do it instantaneously. We'll give you permits,
Right.
Free of charge, and just get it done. Yeah. I mean,
When it's something they want, boy, those rules don't really matter anymore, do they?
right. And you're dealing with a technology that homeowners can't. You do not want a homeowner to connect a solar panel into their grid for their house.
Mm-hmm.
You need professionals to do that.
Right.
I've been around them myself, and I wouldn't do it.
I don't play with electricity at home myself.
Right. And basically they're giving them free will to do this without, we'll come and inspect it after you're done, but whatever, just get it done.
I really dislike the fact that this is a state mandate on cities. If cities want to come up with this kind of plan for themselves, that city zoning is, that's a local thing. That's where people have their most impact, is with their local officials and their city officials. Not this, maybe there's a neighborhood that they don't want that blight, and maybe there's a homeowners association that doesn't want it. Doesn't matter. Now they're forced to agree with it. I really think this is a bad precedent, and it's just government overreach again, and it's big government. And we need to get these guys out of our lives, not more delved into them.
Well, actually, Elon Musk is in the process of developing solar panels that look like normal house roofing material.
Right.
So you can't tell the difference between. So are they going to, once they find out that his solar panels are on the house, are they going to burn the house down because Elon made it?
Yeah, well, that could be. I hadn't thought of that.
Elon derangement syndrome?
Right. All right.
Yeah,
we're going to move on. I think that would be probably what I would see. I was talking to somebody, and I said, well, I was noticing the Tesla trucks, and I noticed that when I first saw them, I thought, that is the stupidest looking truck I ever saw. But then I saw some that were painted up a little differently with black and different colors. And I thought stainless steel doesn't look good, but they can look all right. And they're pretty. I saw one used in a road test taking off from a dead stop next to a sports car, and the thing took off really fast. And the person said to me, "Oh, you don't want to get a Tesla right now. I mean, you get targeted." This is a certified Democrat that said this to me.
Right.
And she doesn't understand that that's your party. These are the people you support. When the conservatives didn't like Bud Light, you know what they did? They didn't buy it. They didn't torch Bud Light plants.
Right.
But that's what we're getting for this. Let's talk about HF 2721. And this is fire life safety damper testing established relating to state fire code. And this is a massive bill. And this is a Pete Johnson bill, has to do with fire, of course. This is what he knows. And so there's a very long list of requirements that are required for this bill. And so I happened to say, how much is it going to cost? And according to this, estimated costs are initial inspection and testing anywhere from $500 to $2,000 or more, depending on the building size and complexity of the systems. Periodic inspections every 4 to 6 years cost from $300 to $1,500 per inspection. Repair and replacement can be significant based on what's happening to them, and penalties of $1 or $100 a day for noncompliance. So what we have is another one of our unfunded mandates, putting more pressure on businesses and buildings. Now, I understand buildings have to have fire code standards, and I think they already do. And I'm not well versed into this. I just realized that it's, again, one of these things that says, thou shalt do this. The state is now running this as well. And the state has so much influence in everything we do. We're getting into being a very communist country. The state just decides what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, but you're free otherwise. It doesn't feel like it's freedom to me.
And like you talked about, like we talked about last week and the week before, about the state wants to take, or our representatives want to take over the state, the zoning laws.
Yeah.
So this is what you're going to get if that happens.
Right.
You're going to get state mandates. If your house is over 1,000 square feet, be prepared to put in fire dampers and sprinkler systems, and you're going to have to get it inspected every year at $2,000 a year.
Well,
plus
last
$100
year
a day.
Last year they tried to make it so you couldn't paint your house with a license. That you'd have to be a licensed painter. It's ridiculous. We need less government.
Less mandates, yep.
HF 2518. Kozlowski co-authored this. Oh, wait, I missed one. I want to do this one first. HF 2289. This is a Pete Johnson, chief author. Hospital required to provide registered nurse staffing at levels consistent with nationally accepted standards. We talked about this last week.
Yep.
But I wanted to run through a cost. And for a medium-sized hospital, the total cost would range from $1 to $3 million per year, depending on the staffing. Unfunded mandates. Again, you wonder why our health costs are so high. The state of Minnesota puts so many mandates in place. They have to hire teams of people just to keep on top of them.
Right.
And then they have to spend the money to actually implement them. It's a fine line, but at some point, when have we got enough laws? It should be a rule for every one of these kind of laws we put in. We got to take 2 away.
And that's what Trump said when he came in. For every one law they start, 5 have to disappear.
Perfect.
So, we're going to have to wait on Trump a little bit to get things, to feel the effect of what he's doing, but it'll come around.
Right. HF 2518, Women Venture Grant funding provided. Report required, money appropriated. $8 million in fiscal year 2026 is appropriated to the general fund to the Commissioner of Employment and Economic Development for a grant to Women Future. Women Future is a site. There is a place. I did a little research taking from their organizational website, womenfuture.org, and looked, and it looks like their lobbying expenditures during a 4-year period is $1.7 million.
Wow. That's crazy.
This is an NGO, non-government organization. If we can't do it as a government, if you're trying to get these things done as a government organization, do it yourself with your employees. Stop giving money to non-government organizations to do it. You lose your oversight. You get this kind of stuff too. Funding back into the party that's providing the money for it. This is a co-authored Kozlowski special right here. $8 million. When are we going to start cutting these things off so that we can keep our money for ourselves? And Alicia, if you want to contribute to these places, open your pocketbook and do it yourself, or get other people to help you out. Stop taking my money to give it to organizations like this, especially if you don't identify as a woman.
Right. And if their lobbying expenditures are 1.7 million, it means that they're giving back to the government. So that means the government's giving it to them, and they're giving it back to the politicians.
Well, I mean, they're not directly giving money to the politicians, but they're spending the money to get more of their money. So they take our money to go back to pay people, so they get more of our money to go back into them. So it's a never-ending cycle.
And that's what's got to stop. I did see a Republican representative talking about the scam that is the state paying private organizations to give it back to the state to lobby for more money. Right.
That's what this is.
And I lost the video. Otherwise, we'd be showing it now.
Right.
That is a total waste of state money, of taxpayer money, and we should never be doing it. We have to put an end to that.
Exactly.
And here's her trying to promote it.
HF 2841, school system video funding provided and money appropriated. There are no Duluth representatives on this bill. This bill proposes a one-time grant of $800,000 to Cultural Connections from the Department of Education. The the Department of Education that's so on top of giving out money and maintaining it and making sure there's no fraud,
Right.
to create videos that explain the U.S. school system to immigrant students and their parents. The videos will be distributed to 320 middle and high schools, translated into parents' first languages, and designed to promote integration, parental involvement, and student success. The goal is to narrow knowledge and achievement gaps by helping immigrant families understand the school system and support their children's education. The appropriation is for fiscal year 2026 and is meant to support better outcomes for immigrant students through increased parental engagement. What a load of crap this is. First of all, the schools aren't complex enough not to be able to understand them. Secondly, if you're coming to this country, you should understand that you have to go into a school system and figure it out. It's not our job to translate videos into your language to explain that we have a public school system that's basically here to accommodate you.
Right.
This is almost $1 million to another organization from the Department of Education to do this.
Especially when we have all these schools around the area looking for money. And then, Hermantown was looking for $700,000 over the next 5 years. Well, we just covered it.
Right.
Now they don't have to look for money. There's one school that we've just fixed.
Right.
Plus they're going to give $100,000 back. And the last line is interesting because it says through increased parental engagement. Well, our Minnesota schools are trying to get rid of parents. They're trying to indoctrinate them so the kids hate their parents. The kids will have a sex change based on what the teacher says, and so on and so forth. But the immigrants, well, they need to get the parents more involved.
If I emigrated to another country, I would expect to figure this out for myself.
Yeah.
And TS, tough noogies.
Noogies, yep.
The last one, no, it's not the last one.
It's never the last one.
SF 2000. It's a bipartisan bill, HF 2318, introduced March 13th, would make teachers eligible for early retirement benefits at 60 years old instead of 62. A Republican-led bill, HF 2329, introduced the same day, would allow retirees who are at least 62 to receive their pensions without any reductions. Another bipartisan bill, HF 1582 and Senate version SF 2000, would make K-12 teachers eligible for early retirement pensions at 60 years old without any reductions to their pension and require employers to contribute more to all teacher pension plans. SF 2000, which is supported by Minnesota's Teachers Union, Education in Minnesota, is nearly identical to the two other bills, but proposes higher employee pension contributions. So I'm surprised the teacher union is doing this. I'm not going to be able to retire until I'm probably 65, just so I can get on Medicare and have money in the bank. But these guys can retire at 60 years old with full benefits. Great. What a great job. So the co-author, Heather Gustafson of Van Ness Heights, they had a little article here. It says, this is a direct quote, "Being a teacher is one of the hardest jobs in our state." You've got to be kidding me. I'm not saying teaching is an easy job. Go roof for a day. Go to the septic systems and clear out one of the septic pipes. Go collect garbage for a day. Go fix roads for a living. Do some manual labor. Don't tell me how hard teaching is. Every job is hard. And I think you said it once best that said, yeah, there's a place there, a group of us meet that have jobs that suck and we hate our boss. It's called The Bar, and we meet every Friday at 5.
Yeah.
And she was a teacher. It's just everybody thinks, or not everybody, lots of people think that they have a unique misery when it comes to their job, and it's just not the truth. It's self-pity. And quit telling me how hard it is to be a teacher. All the jobs are hard. Some are worse than others, but there's no job that you're like begging to go to work every day, just happy as can be. Every job has its challenges, and a lot of them are more physical than being a teacher. There's a lot of jobs where guys retire and their backs are shot, their knees are shot. That's That's from doing the heavy lifting every day. Jobs you don't want to do. And it would be interesting to see what would happen if the school teacher had a job doing that for a couple of weeks, see what they had to say about a tough job.
But what about a downtown Minneapolis, downtown St. Paul police officer?
Right. Yeah.
Where where crime is going through the roof, and you could be shot and killed on any day.
Right.
Any day of the week.
Even firefighters get shot out in Minneapolis when they go to a call. But being a firefighter is a hard job.
Yeah.
It's stress. State trooper, Mark McGrew, he was a state trooper that ran for office in West Duluth last time. He told me that most police officers have heart conditions because of that adrenaline rush they have to go through all the time. And, so don't tell me your job is really hard. It comes on deaf ears. Yes, I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying stop being so self-pitied to think that your job is uniquely hard compared to other people's. Be a guy that has to look through freaking child porn and tell me how bad your job is. Right. I don't even know how those guys can do it. And
the last one,
HF 2591. I didn't put that much down for this one. I must not have had much time. Kozlowski co-authored fifth tier of individual income tax at a rate sufficient to offset lost federal Medicaid funds established. I have to look into that one again because I'm not sure what I
put that one in there.
Oh, you did?
That one in there. Yeah.
Okay.
And President Trump repeatedly said he's not touching Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security.
Yeah.
So she introduces a bill to offset the funds that we're not going to lose from Trump, from the federal government. So, like you said earlier, she's just doing busy work. She's going to make herself feel good about herself. She's going to go on the campaign trail and say, well, look what I did. I put a bill in to offset what we lost from federal. Wait, we didn't lose anything from federal.
There's a ton of people signed. There's 35 authors on this.
Yeah. And we're not losing anything from them. And then they're changing the tax rates to tax us more on it. So it's just, luckily, what Kozlowski does, nothing ever got passed by her. And I wouldn't think raising taxes with the tie vote in the House is going to go any farther. But still, just the mentality of these people are just.
She's not the chief author right now. Gomez is the chief
she's a co-author.
I just looked at the chief author. Her hair is beginning to turn. It's starting to mold, apparently. It's got a tint of green. Oh, boy. Well, thanks for bringing that one up. It's something to look at. But, I listened to a phone call, a conference call that Pete Stauber had, where he addressed a bunch of issues, and then people were able to ask questions. And one of the questions was, I'm concerned about, the cuts that are being done to Medicaid and Social Security. And he's like, there are no cuts. The only thing that's attacking it is getting rid of the fraud. He said, we have found stuff in Medicaid where they're paying for housing. That's not what Medicaid's for. So they're cutting that out. Yeah. But as far as individual contributions from Medicaid, you're not losing anything. And I had this conversation with somebody that in my family about Social Security, and they said, well, get rid of that Social Security entitlement. It's not an entitlement. I've been paying Social Security my entire life from every paycheck I get. I'm not getting the rate of return I would have gotten if I'd invested myself. But don't tell me it's entitlement. It's my money I put into it. I deserve to get my money back. Right. And I won't most likely get all the money back I put in.
Not even close.
And it's certainly not going to be the rate I would have gotten if I would have done it myself. Even if I put it into a 5% interest, savings account.
It's technically a Ponzi scheme that Madoff went to jail for his whole life for.
Right. But you can do it in the government.
But it's like, it's legal in the government. So.
Well, A lot of gangsters have gone to jail for mob and racketeering. But if they'd have just been a government official, it would have been completely legal.
Right. Insider trading, blah, blah, blah.